Good
Hello.
morning. Hi, thank you for joining.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No,
Yes, good to you, right?
sorry?
Good evening to you, right?
Yeah, it's 4 p.m. here. It's been, but at least we got the timing right because with one of my last guests from Boston, I not only did I get the timing wrong, I got the date wrong. So it was one day before and one day after. It's been
You
a
this is so comforting for me, Nana, because that's always been me. Like I usually stressed about getting there, like being on time. Like I have this like punctuality thing and like being on time. And if I'm super stressed, and that is why I was telling you like I'm probably 5 minutes late because I thought we are starting like half an hour before. So thanks for putting out. That really like relaxes me. That's my anxiety trigger.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, it's fine. I mean, I honestly really try to keep the podcast a bit casual. I don't want it to be something that causes stress in people's lives. So it's like, okay, fine. Oh, I messed up the dates. Fine, we'll do it tomorrow. Or fine, we can start 5 minutes late. It's really not a problem. Honestly, it's like I said, it's more like a fireside chat where you just sit down and have a chat, and I get to know you, and my guests or my audience get to know what you do, where you're from. So I was just telling everyone that you have worked in Sweden for 13 years and now you've been in Paris for 2 years and you're originally from India. So can you give us a brief about how you got started? Where did you start working? Where are you from in India? And how has your journey been in like Sweden and in Paris?
Yes, yes, absolutely. That's a good sort of retrospective for me as well. I haven't done in a while. So yes, I was born in India in a very small town called Dhanbad. It's like in Jharkhand or like erstwhile Bihar. I've schooled in Dhanbad, then my university is from like Delhi University, and then I post graduated in Pune. Then I worked in Mumbai for like close to 6 months or like a year. Then I worked in Delhi for about like 6 years. Yeah, about six and a half years. And after that, they basically called me back to Sweden in Ericsson. And since then, I have been in Sweden for like 13 years. Then I got an opportunity with Amazon and they called me to Paris. So I've been in Paris now, actually almost like clocking almost 3 years, but like 2.5 years is fair to say. So yeah, it's been like I would say like a long journey for sure when looking back, but also pivoting at like different locations, pivoting also like career-wise in different roles. So it's kind of changed me as a person for sure. Like what I was, like picking up my first job and how I would look at challenges in a corporate space versus how I look at it now is actually dynamically opposite in a lot of stages. Yeah.
How so? Like since you've said that it's dynamically opposite, how do you see that?
I think on a couple of platforms, given like and this is especially what I learned moving out of India is it seems like a lot of times we have very different educational backgrounds, like living in Europe or living in the US, then working with Middle East, like all colleagues and candidates, they have very different educational background, which sort of stimulates our thinking and our perspectives in an extremely like significantly different way. So growing up, my focus has always been like I've been a very academically like excellent in school, in university, in college. So it was always about getting the right grades. It's always about being the topper in the university. So you've done all of that, and then sort of you tend to assume that your whole worldview is going to follow that structure. And that is typically that doesn't happen because just performing hard and knowing a skill and then just working hard and that just delivering is not what the world really requires. So you sort of come out of that bubble. So it takes a bit of a hit on you, and that's where your personality sort of shows up. And I think that's what I have learned because when I was growing up in India, like I said, I was academically very good. So I never faced like any challenge in terms of breaking through any entrances. I cleared all the entrance exams. There was a time when I wanted to do medical and I did not clear that, but I cleared something else. So got into the universities. I was, in the university also, I think I was the second topper or third topper in the university. Then I went to like Pune, then I cleared another entrance exam. So for me, it felt like, you work hard and you clear an entrance exam and then that's it. But that's typically not the case. So when I got to Sweden, I pivoted my career. I used to start as a communication in public relations in India. And I was invited to have like a strategic contract on marketing communication. So I found it very exciting. And then I just I think it was pretty much like an overnight decision for me. And now looking back, I feel like, what the hell was I thinking? Like when I got to Stockholm, like people thought I knew people. They thought like I knew leaders in Ericsson, or probably I have some family background in Sweden. And I'm talking like now, 15 years back, there were not even so many Indians in Sweden at the time. Like I remember like moving in elevators or like just jumping from one building to the other. People would say like, okay, you're Indian, you're a developer. Like Indian was synonymous with being a developer. That's it. I was like, no, I'm in marketing. Like, no, I'm not a developer. And that really used to piss me off. So that's also sort of like, bubbles of what also, I would say locals in Europe, or like for that matter, this case, Nordics, also kind of perceive you. Like India is, of course, known for like high skilled talent, but typically Indians are either engineers or they are doctors, or they are somewhere got to do with IT or software development. So that took like a while. So I think breaking those barriers, like coming to a foreign country and then adapting to the culture of a foreign country, like the Nordics culture, I would say is actually just in contradiction to the Indian culture. Like it's just like North Pole and South Pole. And like I said, like when I decided, yes, I have an opportunity and I need to move, I never thought of those aspects. Like, okay, like what kind of a culture am I entering into? What are the kind of like talent pool am I entering into? How big is the market? And of course, I was young at that time. I just believed that you perform, you work hard, you will deliver, and that's it. But that's the game. I think the game plan sort of have to change, and that's what I learned, that keeping different perspectives is so critical when you want to become like a global a global candidate, or just like a global specialist who can deliver. You have to keep the different perspectives in mind. And I just came from like my own, educational background. So that I felt like was, very dynamically different. It also kind of pushes you on the edge. So like I said, it also depends like on what kind of a person you are, because I've had like a lot of colleagues much year later who came to Sweden. And now you have like a huge Indian community in Sweden. But they could not stand this, contradictory culture, and they actually decided, and it's very cold. Like Nordics is extremely cold. The people are cold in the sense like they walk with their own, shepherd. So they have their own set of friends who they've grown up with, schooled with, and they're all living in the same city. So they don't have a need to make new friends. So you wouldn't really make friends with the locals, which means that you sort of hang around with a community which is basically of immigrants, and that happened to me as well. Most of my friends are from Bulgaria or Spain or Germany, and I have like a group of friends who are from Sweden, and because the Swedish like culture is so like it's very planned. So it's very not unique in Sweden, which was very unique for me to kind of face, is you plan your vacations 2 years in advance. So people plan their summer vacations, they already know where are they going in 2027. And for me that was like, okay, I don't know where I'm going like 3 months. I don't know about like 1 year later. So I have this group of Swedish friends who we meet like every 6 months. And it's like you meet every 6 months, and that's how it is. But you meet 6 months. I can't like impromptu call a Swedish friend and say, come down and let's have a beer. That's not the game. So I think, getting used to those cultural differences teaches you a lot, that this way of living is not the only way. You need to kind of put yourself exposed. And then come to France. Like France is like extremely engaging. and extremely like social. But they have their boundaries in terms of definitely the language and the the historical sort of background that they carry. And a lot of times you could possibly struggle a lot to fit if you don't keep that mindset. So you could easily feel like, okay, I'm being cornered because I'm not from here. So you could easily sort of get into that sense, and that's where I see like it comes like how you adapt
Hmm.
to different cultures, how you bring in your like your self motivation. What are your self drivers? Why have you come here? So you have to question yourself in a lot of ways, and it's only then that you can find your own survival techniques. So I think that's probably the key, has been the key for me, like to identify what is my survival techniques. Yeah.
So it's, Sweden for 13 years, and you're right, like Nordic countries. I have a friend who has been living in Norway for a while, and initially I remember when she went there, the cultural shock, like the way she used to explain it to me is exactly what you said, that people are planning vacations 2 years in advance. And, in India, once we start working at a place, we become friendly and we get to the office and we're like, hey, how are you going? And it's not like that in Norway. Like you have to be very like respectful of people's space, and you can't just casually be like, hi, hello, what's up, and things like that. And I still remember, 10, 12 years ago when she moved there, she was like, oh my God, people really don't talk to me here.
Yeah, yeah. You could actually easily get into that space, and that's why they say like the Stockholm syndrome. Like you could easily get into a space where you could start judging yourself, or you could start sensing that there is something wrong in me, or I have not been able to put that effort. So, because, like I said, like coming from that educational background, like for me, my upbringing is always like you put in like 5 steps and then you expect somebody else to take 2 steps. But you keep on doing 5 steps, 10 steps, 15 steps, and the other person is just not even taking 1 step, and you start kind of assuming that, okay, there seems to be something wrong. I'm not putting in hard enough. So then you start to kind of, punish yourself and kind of penalize yourself to kind of put more hard work, and you put more energy, and that can easily sort of like drive your spirit out of you. And like I said, it's like a cold country. So winters, of course, are when people try to kind of stay inside, and they're so planned. So if you don't have your group of friends and you haven't planned your June board, like your Christmas board, or you haven't planned like your, they have these sports vacations. There are a lot of like good holiday seasons that you get in Sweden. Haven't planned that, then you could feel okay. Yeah, the whole world has planned something, and I'm waiting for somebody to come and ask me, but I don't have that one. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. What do you think was the main difference between you and the people who left? For example, you ended up staying in Stockholm for 13 years and worked quite successfully. And people who, for example, came in after 6 months, a year or 2 years, and they were not able to assimilate in that sense or manage it. What do you think was the main difference now that if you can see this in retrospect?
Yeah, I think for me, I came alone. My husband was still in India. He had a startup. So I think initially for me, it was more about like putting my foot there, establishing my my way of working, trying to understand, can I like go up the corporate ladder? So I think my focus has always been like work, and that was kind of like the biggest driver for me. And because I was performing and I was super young, I also got a lot of like opportunities. I was traveling the whole of Europe, US, Middle East. So I've worked with global colleagues. One thing that really kept me up is the fact that my teams have always been super global. So even if I am like delegating tasks to people who are from Spain or Italy, Norway, Denmark, and I had to basically only do the strategy with people who are in Sweden. So my sort of work life circle was more than Sweden. So I think that was something that has kept me. And thankfully enough, I've also like had like a bunch of people in Sweden who I met through different talent programs, who have been extremely supportive and have been open in kind of sharing their experiences. So, like I said, my friends are mostly Spanish, German, and Bulgarian. So that's the sort of like bigger group I have, and it's interesting to see that they feel the same. So I think it's like when you share your perspective and you get that a similar response back. from other colleagues, then it sort of kind of like pulls you down and says that, okay, I'm at peace. It's not, not the only person who's feeling that. And I think the other thing probably which was driving me was, basically like the work performance. So, like I said, like growing up also, I've been like, if you're not moving up the ladder, then, you need to figure out what are the other ways and techniques that you can do that. So I got a lot of opportunities and that kept me super busy. The other thing I think just with me itself is like I don't just give up. It also kind of like it's a little like stubbornness, I think, because maybe as a child I was like pampered too much. Like I have like this stubborn thing in me that I feel like I don't think like I'm wrong here, or like my way of doing or just being is not acceptable. So I kind of push myself like really hard for the other person to really be so straightforward enough to come and tell me that I really don't want to talk to you. Unless then I don't give up. And if that is not coming across, like I'm really like, and that's why I have often gotten this feedback. Like I was like growing very good in marketing, and I've often gotten this feedback like, like she's like a chaser. Like, she's going to chase me down if I don't respond to her. So I better just do my work now. So I think maybe that also sort of plays, and yeah, I was like very adamant that I'm not going back until I find out like what really is happening here. Like, am I the person who's like not like adapting, or is there something in the culture? And that takes a while. Also, like Nordics are like slow as a system itself. So and the value of trust is very very high, which I think works a lot with me because I'm a very like straight talk person. So that works in certain scenarios, and sometimes in the corporate space it does not work because you need to read between the lines. I'm learning that. I'm getting better at like reading, like being a little bit gray. But I'm really a black and white person, and that works in Sweden. So for them also, I think it was like my Swedish like set of core friends. For them also, it was very refreshing that they said like it was very good to see that somebody's just saying what they feel. I was like, yeah, well, like I don't know what is the other way of like I don't know how to polish a picture. Even if I've been in marketing, I know how to do it on the work side, but like on the personal side, I'm really like a black and white person. So if you have like tried to let's say pass a comment or be a sarcastic like in between the lines, like you've not told me straightforward, I'm not taking it. So I've just become like like that blindfolded person. If you don't tell me straight, like I'm not gonna take it.
No, but that's
So that's
interesting because I feel that it allows you to keep your focus. It allows you to stay aligned with who you are and the things that you do. Because I also feel that, when you move out of your country and you interact with people from so many different cultures, doing that and trying to read between the lines, it can get pretty hectic because everyone comes from a different culture. Everyone has a way of saying things. For example, in India, there is more to read between the lines, whereas maybe not so much in the Nordic countries. So it's like, why do you want to do so much work? It's like, it's better to just stay black and white, straight talk, clear communication.
Yeah, yeah, that you could say that as well. I'm also very lazy on that front. Like, there are like the Swedish diplomacy and the Swedish bureaucracy is also very very well known. So if you look into like the history, their attempt to they're probably like one of the few countries who've never been like in a world war. They're the ones who are neutral. So their way of like creating strategies is also like diplomatic at several levels, but you will never see them like come on the front. I think that was one thing also that kind of give me a setback initially, is because Nordics they believe it's like an egalitarian society, so they believe in having consensus from everybody, and they also believe in not having you to stand out on any ground. So either as a performer or as an individual or as like a somebody who's working very hard, you should not be standing out, because we don't want somebody else who's not stood out to feel like less deserved or less and that for me was again like a contradiction from the Indian educational background. There we are like we are always like elbowing each other to kind of like work our ways around, sometimes doing within your family, like the amount of politics sometimes we have within our Indian families is, is also like vast. And I think for me also that was a bit of an escape because I could not survive like the Indian politics, and I am like I said, I'm like a straight talk person, which does not always like go down well with a lot of people. So having like a trust-based society, which is very planned and delivers, that worked for me. So you could say like I'm a very boring person. Like this is what my when my husband came to Sweden after about like 5 years. He used to kind of like make the first comments because he got invited from Stockholm School of Economics. And that I think could be like, the other trigger why I kind of continued because he got invited by SSC as one of the Asia Pac startup owners. And he used to say like, like it's like it's Sweden, it's like everything is clean, everything works, the trains are on time, the buses, if they say like 10 to 2, it will arrive at 10 to 2 and not at 10 to 3. Everything works, like the garbage is coming out on time, the recycling is happening on time. Like there is no chaos, there's no fun. Like he felt it like it's really boring. Like the fun in India is because like things are not working. Now everything is working here. What do you really add value with? So yeah, that way I'm a little bit boring person. I like monotony. So yeah, the same way of living.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't use the word boring, but I feel that after the chaos of India, being structured in that sense can also feel very comforting. Because, in India, I used to feel that sometimes even the basic things, they don't work. So I felt that I had less time and less bandwidth to actually be creative and to actually create things. Whereas even after moving here to Australia, I feel like everything just works. So I don't have to stress about, the smaller things in life which just keep life going. I actually have time to be creative or think of new ideas and actually execute them. So yeah, I wouldn't call it boring. I think it's perfect actually. It's very comforting to know that your basics work and then you can look at doing other stuff.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what kind of I think is very true for me because I don't want to struggle with a lot of admin in life. And now when I live in France, I kind of relate so much to all the admin challenges that I mean. It took me 9 months in Paris to get all my admin sorted. So I was kind of cribbing because it took me like 3 months, maybe in Sweden when I moved like 13 years back, 15 years back now. But in Paris, it took me like, and Paris and France administration is very lot of paperwork. Like the Nordics are very digital. France is like everything is like paperwork. So it kind of started reminding me of how I was living in Delhi and with all the paperwork that used to go across there. And that's like dynamically opposite. So now I'm kind of trying to live in a chaos, like try to adjust myself and changing my my nervous system to kind of bring it back to okay, you need to have adaptability again. And that I have always felt like I think also probably it matches because of the roles that I do. So I work in business transformation, and I work with a lot of uncertain like digital capabilities that we build across organization, trying to see what is going to help the business value trigger and stimulate like the dollar value for a corporate. And the only thing that comes across, like even in corporates, is the adaptability of it. Like you have to constantly keep changing and reinventing in order to like make your mistakes so many times that there will be one time where you will suddenly have like a eureka and you will feel like okay, now you've like innovated and created like a novice solution that you can actually take to market. And that I like often correlate with our personal behaviors in how we live and how we interact with people and colleagues across the globe. Is you have to constantly like reinvent yourself. The time you sort of get demotivated or you feel like less drivers, and those are the times where you have to push yourself even harder and say what is it that is going to keep you motivated and find those like drivers. And I think like as an immigrant, like coming like from India to a like different country, those are the ones which are I would say like major challenges why people decide to kind of like go back. And of course there will be like different other reasons like your like personal or family situation. But a lot of times I see like those drivers, if you don't have them, or like you've come to a country where, or like you've done to Adelaide, if you didn't know anybody, like when I landed in Sweden, I knew nobody, like literally nobody besides who had hired me, and I also did not know him because I just gave a virtual interview and he selected, and then I was sent because I was like they have like this rapid high potential in Ericsson. So I was part of that group, and they kind of said, okay, this is a high potential candidate. We are putting her to Sweden. That's all. So if you don't know, and you don't know how to like reinvent yourself to find your new drivers, like what is motivating you, you have to start question yourself, like what is really driving you. I think that part of it like really connects to me, like both for my personal life as well as for my professional life. I kind of also look at corporates as, as like a living machine, where you have to constantly reinvent that culture. And that's my core role. So that's why I kind of connect to that, like literally to my personal life as well. If I'm not able to adapt or like change, then I feel I really it should go back. That would be my last day in that. But I think that's really been like the key driver. Yeah, reinventing
Got it.
yourself.
No, I think this podcast will be very interesting for people wanting to move out and go to countries like Nordic countries, or your experience in Paris, etc. I feel like there are a lot of people even these days, who move out and who are not really able to figure out what are the things they should look at, especially before you move in. Because before I moved to Australia, I had never been to Australia and I didn't know anything about the culture. So for me, it was just like, let's go and see. But again, I'm not really in a corporate role. For me, it's also different because, I'm always been an independent contractor in that sense. So for me, it was more of like a curiosity. I was like, let's go and see what it's like. But coming here, it's been very interesting, like the things you've observed and how the culture is different. But I never really had a language issue. That is definitely, I think, a big point, because here everyone speaks English. How did you manage that? Like in Stockholm also, and now you're in Paris also. And I know I've been to Paris, and my experience was not very nice because they would, even though they knew how to speak in English, they would still speak in French. And I knew a little bit of French, but I thought it was really rude because we had a time where it was a medical emergency and my dad was not doing well at all. And I wanted to just ask, like, what can we do? And they would just refuse to speak in English. So I would love to know what your experience was in Stockholm as well. And of course, now in Paris.
Yeah, no, that's very much on the spot, Naina. The thing is, like, talking about like medical emergency, I have just been in the Paris emergency like three weeks back, because I was like, I just got into an emergency. Somehow I managed. And you've been giving me an example of how you were here as a tourist, if I
Yes.
ask, as a tourist with your parents. So I can probably relate to that so strongly, because I'm like a heavy taxpayer in France. I pay like at least 42% tax in France, which is like a high tax bracket when you are living and earning here. And I don't have kids. And I live alone. So that's like your, the tax bracket of people who probably are not really getting much of the social benefit advantage from the system itself, but are just paying like high taxes. And when I got into an emergency like 3 weeks back, they did not entertain me because I was not speaking French. And this is what, kind of, this is where the adaptability skill, I feel like, working in uncertain situations sort of really comes up, where you really need to, as an immigrant, know your rights, and your administration requirements, what it requires of you to be able to have the confidence to stand up and say, this is not acceptable. This would not happen to me in Sweden. I can say that, because the Swedish administration is very, very different from the French administration. Like I said, French administration also works with a lot of chaos, and probably it is got to do also with the population. Like Sweden is 10 million people. There are like 25 million people here in just Paris, and like India probably 40 million in just Delhi. So that that sort of like changes the dynamics so much, that you really need to stand up. And this is what I had to do. Like I was the patient, and my husband does not speak French either. Luckily enough, at the time I had like my visiting friends who can speak French, and they stood up and they said like you cannot, like, because I was in the emergency and they knew I'm collapsing. But you cannot like deny a patient just because like you have a queue, and I was in a hospital emergency. And of course, they kind of entertained that because my friends could speak French. I think, as an immigrant, this is what I learned, like you really need to like know your rights, know like you are a taxpayer, and the government does not really say that the language is a barrier if you are a taxpayer. So having that level of confidence and that courage, which is hard to kind of motivate yourself to get at those like critical times, is something that you have to probably learn. And I think this is something that you should, like, if you're thinking about like moving out of India, is you should really have your own grit to tell you to stand your ground. And you should really study about like the taxation and like the administrative rights. I've also known a lot of my colleagues or friends and just connections and acquaintances who actually came to the Nordics, either Denmark or Sweden, years later when I was living there, who have got into situations where either they have not gotten their visa renewed, or they've had some challenges because they've come as a student. Therefore, they've had some visa challenges. So you really need to know what your rights are, and that I think that studying and that educational understanding that would really help. For me, I was a bit secure, or more than secure, because I came as a corporate headcount pool. So I was headhunted, and therefore I was very secure with the Ericsson's requirements of getting immigration. But I've seen like Indian students or even students from Malaysia or China who've come and they've struggled a lot of this. So I think it really helps. And in a country like Nordic specifically, it can, like I said, like the environment or the weather and the culture is not working for you. So you have to really keep your like motivation high, so that if things don't work, you don't pull yourself down, and you are able to reach out to people. So I think that's really critical. And also my observation has also been, because I've also been sitting in like women leadership forums in Sweden, is women have that capability, especially Indian women, to being more social. So the amount of support I've got from women, it's incredible. And the amount of inspiration I've got from women. So all the examples that I've told you about, people not liking the culture and choosing to go back to their home country, are mostly men. Mostly. Because they have all been like grown up by being served. Like, so you sit and somebody comes and serves you. Or if you're just standing in a queue, somebody comes and asks you. And women, I think from the Indian educational background, they're so much like givers. So we operationally give so much. We are more efficient, of course. And we have the skill set to manage multiple things at a time. And that is, I feel, also worked in my favor quite a lot, because I wasn't embarrassed of asking my Swedish friend to say, do you know, like, where's the next migration worker, and if I stand in a queue, will the Skatteverket office entertain me? Versus my Indian colleague who's never going to ask and say, because they have, I don't know, I mean, my view is like they just sit in their ego tantrum to think like somebody's going to come and ask you. So you have to, break your internal barriers, and that's why I feel a lot of times like having different perspectives works. A lot of times I feel like we are more in our, inner perception of thinking what you think, I think I am, rather than, just taking it at the face value. And that's why me being like straightforward, like I said, like if you've not told me, it doesn't exist for me. If you want to talk to me, like open up your mouth and say it. So I see like these are the skills. Also, when I look at like mentoring like younger candidates, like both in France and Amazon as well as in Ericsson, when I'm mentoring them, one of the skills that I often say is, because now with with AI or with agents, work is becoming extremely seamless. So it doesn't matter which skill sets you come from, or it doesn't matter like what MIT grade you got. What it matters is how you can adapt to that. Can you work with uncertain situations, and can you keep your emotional quotient high enough so that you can work with those uncertainties? And I think those are the skills that I really hope, like an education institute in India would kind of bring up into their curriculum. That's the survival, because that I feel is like help me survive. I had to like co-learn those skills like myself, like looking at people, and I think that's where women works a lot, because we observe. We are okay to be in a group where you're not always the one who is the leader. I feel like men want to be in a group where they are a leader, or somebody is subordinate. Like there's always like this hierarchical feeling. Like with women, I feel like we work in the sisterhood like much more better. Like so I felt like that has really helped me to kind of break my own barriers or embarrassment. Like I should not be embarrassed to be able to ask just
Yeah.
like a local how to navigate.
Yeah.
That's
No, my experience with the women after coming to Adelaide has been the same. I have had a lot of help and support, which I think coming from India, I never really learned how to ask for help. That was always something that I was like, no, I will do this on my own. I don't need any help. But people have just helped here without even my asking. And Australian culture in that sense has also, like when I got here, when people would offer something, I would do the typical Indian, no, 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 no. And then they'd be like, okay. And I'd be like, no, but like you have to ask me again. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm not in India anymore. So it's that was one thing that kind of helped me shift that. And now, again, like you said, if you don't talk to me, I don't know about it. So you have to open your mouth and tell me about it. So now I feel like if I'm openly asking someone for help, people are more than willing to help. And the Indian diaspora all over Australia. I've had, there's a lady in Perth who always leaves these most amazing, insightful comments on my Instagram from which I have learnt a lot. Then there is a chef who was the first person on the podcast, and she sent me a care package a couple of weeks ago when I wasn't doing too well financially. And suddenly I have all this shopping landing up at my door, and I'm like, what is going on? And I've had women bring me food. I've had women get on calls with me. Someone saw an Instagram post saying where I was saying that I don't really have anyone to bounce ideas off of. Who do I talk to? And she's like, every week Monday we will get on a call, Naina. And I was like, wow, okay. So I do get your point about the way Indian women are different. And I have also met quite a few Indian men who have now gone back because they really couldn't keep up with this. One thing that you mentioned that I wanted to ask you about was you mentioned that you are on some women leadership things. Like, can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so like I said, my focus has always been work. So I've been mentoring. So in my previous organization in Ericsson, I was part of this leadership council where you put like high talent to kind of grow and inspire like the young candidates who join the organization. So I have and since I became like part of their core committee, I started like organizing events and doing like a cross collaboration with other organizations such as Scania, Volvo, IKEA in Sweden. So I started like building a group with both like trying the idea of the forum is basically to be able to push like leadership and leadership with different perspectives. My essence, my core essence in that community has always been like there are enough forums for women disparity or diversity in corporate spaces. My core essence from this Women in Leadership forum has primarily been to encourage diverse perspectives. Like if you are a woman and you need a certain background and push and drivers to be able to present your ideas, you should have a network where those ideas will be heard, and a community who is willing to give in that time, that honest feedback, and your learnings from that culture and from that country. So for me, that has worked a lot in Sweden, because I've met such inspirational like women leaders who are not essentially from the Nordics themselves, but they have come in, they have learned the culture, they've learned the language, because you pointed out language is sort of an entry, integration, I would say, qualifier. So it is that in the Nordics, not so much, maybe because a lot of like the locals have a very fluent English, and Sweden particularly, you can easily survive. Even Norway, you can easily survive by knowing the language. Although what I do respect is that if you want to be like completely integrated into a society, it is you need to kind of know the core like aesthetics and the DNA that sort of builds that society. And language is a core component that is going to help you know that DNA. So take it as that, which is going to help you understand the DNA, rather than as a medium which is like a blocker, because that sort of changes your perspectives. If you look at it like they're not entertaining me because I don't speak Swedish, rather than to understand that if I knew Swedish, I would understand this culture, so I would have a choice whether I want to be in part of that group or not. So then I have a choice that I can exit. So I think just in order to increase your choices, you understand the DNA. And it's the same like works in India as well. Like when you work in Delhi versus when you go to like Bombay, or versus when you go to Hyderabad, like you will be ignored if you're not speaking Kannada or Telugu. So I think it's a bit of that, and that sort of helps you. So my community actually thrives on bringing diverse perspectives. So I encourage bringing in leaders who, especially like either directors, senior directors, or vice presidents at corporates, who for me are I highly insist on authentic and honest. So, like I said, like there are a lot of forums where leaders come up and they're like, okay, yes, you have to be more proactive, you have to push yourselves out, you have to learn new skills. But those are the foundations. You've done that. There are a lot of women leaders who are not getting support, not just because they've not had like the fundamentals. It's because they are not seen. Is because they are an immigrant. You have not understood their culture and their background as well. So I look at inviting leaders who are more authentic in their leadership, where they can also face and present their challenges, because we often kind of look at leaders having like a very white slate where they've never made any mistakes, or they've never had any challenging situations, or nobody has pulled you down. But that's not the case. Like you don't work up the corporate ladder if you've not been, bitten twice or thrice, or I don't know how many times. And kind of, yeah, you kind of, develop that stamina and the grit to be able to say, okay, fine, I don't care. I know you're not in for me, but I'm just going to work to be able to drive value. So how do you work across getting that authentic leadership on the table? And getting that authentic leadership is also a lot of self work, like how you work on yourself to understand where you draw the line, where your integrity and your values kind of combine to be able to deliver something, and where you say that, okay, this is something which is not in line with my values, I'm not going to deliver it, therefore I make the exit, which can be at the choice of not taking like a senior position, because it's expecting to do something which is not in line with your values, or it is about just pivoting to a different organization and say that, okay, these are the skill sets I have, this is the value I can deliver, I'm ready to work hard, I'm an honest like candidate. Because you are not really married to to an organization. I think it's a constant work on yourself, and that's where this leadership forum exists. So I've built that in Sweden, and now looking at and then we have like a lot of candidates who are spread across in the Europe. So I have some people in Finland, some people in Spain, some in France as well. So now we're trying to like see like whether it can be like a virtual community or should it have like physical, small cohorts in different countries. So trying to build at that. But yeah, that's my core essence of having true leadership in you.
Nice. Sounds fantastic. Thank you
Yeah,
for
thank you.
sharing that. I do want to also ask you, like you've been talking about mostly professional stuff. Like you're always talking about the corporate ladder, you're talking about all these, groups of amazing women and how you've progressed with your career. What do you do when you are not working?
That's a thing I ask myself a lot of time. I do like yes because we don't have kids and that's like a lot of like social stigma attached to that as well. But I do a lot. I'm not into like creativity, so I think I tend to do like a lot of painting. So I like artwork, and to be honest enough, I think. When you started doing your artwork and you started posting up is where it caught my attention so much because initially I think when I saw those posts I was like this is like an artwork like I have not seen anybody in India like delivered. And I was very curious to see like how is it gonna like land? Like what is she gonna do? And I think that got my interest so much. And since then I've been like really following, and it's amazing. I have to tell you that.
Thank you.
Um, so I really like that is the next part in me. So what I do, let's say when I was in the Nordics, I am a professional Odissi dancer, like a PhD in Odissi and a PhD in vocal. So that comes with your entire social grooming, like as a kid in India. So I used to do a lot of that. In the Nordics, but then when I started there was like very limited exposure to Odyssey specialists then. Now I think there must be more. But I'm also this curious cat because whenever I see something new, let's say on Instagram, like in Paris, there are like millions of things, zillions of things that you could do. I'm always like, I want to now do this because now my interest has been recently on painting. Like I used to paint like here and there when like growing up, but now I see these calligraphic paintings that you can like do on Instagram, where it helps you kind of de-stress with your anxiety, but it also helps you sort of select the colors that go with the kind of thoughts you are building. So I want to like challenge myself to be able to understand like what is really my brain like focusing more on, and be able to learn that kind of art. And apparently going forward it sort of also helps you to understand yourself much better, because I think that is one thing like I have learned like coming out of India is I have understood myself much better than I used to understand myself back home, because back home I felt like I understood myself but what I was told I was, rather than reinventing yourself to understand who you really are. And I think that's something. So I'm a very curious cat. I've also been learning golf. Like it's been 2 years now since I came to Paris. I haven't practiced, but I've also been golfing a little bit in Sweden here and there. I have the latest thing I have is to pick up on swing dancing. So that's something I want to do. So I want to do a lot of things. But yes, I think where I'm struggling currently a little bit is in terms of my time management, to be able to manage that and keep my like health in place. So I am like a yoga certified trainer. So I kind of try to instill that I'm doing yoga and like keeping myself like my mind, body and health like in control. I think like my focus is that. So I'm kind of biting in small pieces, and also with my like geographical instability that I create on myself, self-induced stability. So I'm trying to put myself stable till I pick something. But I'm a curious cat. I just want to learn like if there's anything new. There's something else I found on Instagram, which was like you can draw small caricatures just with a pen. So those kind of calligraphic writings, I kind of signed myself up to a course So I'm doing like a course on Kaiga. It has got nothing to do with my my
Like,
profession.
to me, it sounds like you are also trying to, do your the other interests also in a very corporate way because everything sounds like it's managed and you've done PhDs and you're signing up to courses. And what do you do to relax? Like, when do you switch off and just relax? Is there something that you do? Do you go for walks? Do you take vacations? Do you take time to just sit with yourself and breathe?
That's a good thing because I my last therapist actually, once told me like you have to breathe. And this is you just caught me when you said that. What I do when I have to relax, I think yoga is one thing. That is that one thing for me, which I kind of try to build into my routine. That is one thing. Of late, I have been yeah, I am that corporate person because I really need to plan backwards. So of late, I have started like making my personal goals as well. So I kind of start doing like a vision board and say, okay, by the end of the year, how many personal vacations I can like tick off. That's not happening. I have to say I'm not performing very well on that scorecard. So my quality metrics is like really poor on that sense. But yeah, those are I think my me time is really when I can write a like I do journals. Again, I'm not consistent with any particular thing, but my yoga and my journals are my time when I can like give to myself to be able to put my thoughts onto paper. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, chalo, at least you have something. Because it's even, it really sounds like you're trying to, manage everything. And I was wondering, I was like, when do you like slow down? When do you switch off? And obviously you're very driven, which is why you are doing the things that you're doing and, PhD in like Odyssey and all. Like, I don't think I've ever even spoken or even known that there are people who can do that. So you clearly have a very diverse variety of things, not just professionally, but also personally. And I'm wondering, why don't you have an Instagram page where you showcase all of this? Because I feel there are so many aspects to your personality. You've led a very colorful life in terms of the kind of changes you've had professionally, geographically, etc. Why have you ever considered that? That, maybe you can do like 2 posts a week and all your interests that you do, maybe yoga, maybe a bit of Odyssey, maybe a bit of painting. What is the latest thing that you're trying these days? Have you considered doing that?
That's a great idea, Naina. No, I haven't. I haven't considered at all. What I did consider was having like an Instagram community for my like women founders or like women leaders. But I haven't considered doing that. I mean, there have been thoughts where I have to say, like people, especially when I actually came to Paris, I was like under pressure that you have to do like an Emily in Paris Instagram account, like a Manka in Paris account. I have got that a lot, and because I have been on a couple of TV shows because I've been like a moderator because I was in marketing, so I have done a lot of live shows. So I've done things like but all on the corporate ladder, like interviewing people or trying to get like a podcast or like a focused interview. So I've got a lot of those asks from people, but I haven't. But maybe the outcome of this could be that like it could lead me to that. Why
Yeah.
not? Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, who knows, like, a year, 2 years down the line when you're finally like, okay, I am finally set up with so many things that I could do independently, that you just become like this independent leader woman that you have so much stuff in your life that you have done, you have accomplished, and the things, again, like I said, I feel like there are a lot of younger women who would love to know about your journey because I feel like more like people like you and me, we're very relatable in that sense. So I feel that there are a lot of people who want to know about our journey because they are looking for a path. They are looking for like, oh, if she can do it, I can do it too. Which is, for example, one of the reasons I started the podcast because it was like, who is inviting me to a podcast? I was like, where are all the regular people? Because most really huge podcasts focus on, celebrities or people who are in politics or whatever, like big names already. But I feel like we are the people who are actually living life in that sense, where most people would love to know about our journeys. And I feel like you're like the perfect candidate for this.
Thank you for that feedback. Yeah, I mean, it could be the next thing. I haven't like thought through on any one thing. My challenge with myself is like to be consistent in any one thing that I'm doing. Like like I said, my own self-induced inconsistencies are so high that my stability with one particular thing does not last that long. And maybe I should ask you, like, what has kept you so stable on Instagram or like social platforms?
I have
Like,
not
why
been
this?
stable at all. I am super inconsistent. It's because it's like, it's whatever. It's just Instagram. I have done 5 podcasts this week, so I have basically lost my mind. So next week I am taking off. I'm not booking any podcast next week, and after that we will see. And I'm super inconsistent. And the kind of reels that I do, some people believe, and I used to believe that, oh, I'm 45, I have this image in public and I have a kind of a reputation to keep up. And actually, no, I don't think anybody gives a fuck. It's just like you do what really makes you happy. And I think now after moving from India to Australia, I finally feel like I'm out of that hustle culture. And oh my God, I never want to go back to that again. And I honestly feel that you're really hard on yourself because I've heard you say that lots of times that you are inconsistent or that you have not been able to do XYZ things. And I feel like maybe you're missing the picture where because I see a brilliant woman who has traveled the world and set up, such an amazing professional career in Stockholm, in Paris, without even speaking the language. And you have a leadership group where you're trying to bring women together. You have such diverse interests. I feel like you're fucking brilliant, but I feel like you put so much pressure on yourself that perhaps you're not really looking at yourself like that.
Thank you. That really has makes me my Sunday because I have like a long week to go the next week that's upcoming. Yes, I mean I wouldn't like totally dismiss that. I will acknowledge that I have been hard on myself and probably more harder. And I think my own realizations, like I said, on diverse perspective or just being understanding my own educational background and how you can survive in a foreign country is also got to do with my own retrospective of what I am learning. And I think that's probably expectation versus reality. When you see, okay, the world view is not really what you thought it was. So yeah, I would acknowledge that I'm hard on myself, but I have to say, like, since I turned 40, that has sort of like gone down. So if you say that now you still see that, then you're looking at a diluted version of it.
Wow. Whoa, that is intense. I mean, obviously, like I said, you've been saying that about your school also. You've always been a high achiever. So I can totally see that. But yeah, okay, sorry. We have 1 minute left. And I would really like to thank you for coming on. I appreciate that. And thank you for participating in a freewheeling conversation. I was pretty confident that we would be able to do it without having like a structured thing. And you have so much to share. I think you should just have talking head videos where you pick a subject, talk about it for a month, pick another subject, talk about it, and just, 2 minute videos. Just, oh my God, you have so much to share.
Sure, sure. I will consider these things, and having somebody as a bouncing, feedback mechanism, or just like as a listening mechanism, is great. Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely surprising because my professional life of marketing and like now transformation, and me looking at myself not being able to do any sort of social platform because of like either like self blockers is sort of quite contradictory. But yeah, I mean, I will definitely give it a thought. Thank you so much
Amazing.
for
Amazing. Thank you.
like inspiring a lot of users through your
Likewise.
channels.
Likewise. All right. Thank you, Manka. Take care.
Bye. Have a good evening.
You too. Enjoy. Bye.
Bye.